a national program leader at the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. We are going to begin in probably the next couple of minutes. I just wanted to go ahead and take this time to do a sound check, and hopefully you can hear me. And if you can, if you could just indicate in the chat box that you can hear me, please let me know. Okay, perfect. And you should also see the first slide, the title slide of the presentation that I'm getting ready to conduct. Just as a reminder, I will send out these slides as well as a couple of other resources probably later on this afternoon. Just as a reminder too, just go ahead, if you haven't done so already, just feel free to adjust your audio. You can mute your mic. I'll take questions at the end, and you can type your questions in the chat box. I'll take those one by one afterwards. But go ahead and just make sure that your mic is off and your camera as well. You can also turn that off. We'll begin in the next minute and a half. Thanks. Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started at this point. Again, my name is Antonio McLaren. I am the National Program Leader for the 1890 Capacity Building Grants Program. And the purpose of today's session is to provide an orientation to the 1890 Capacity Building Grants Research Panel. This is a pre-panel orientation, so this is really purpose to kind of give you an overview of the entire panel process, to discuss some logistics, the process in terms of the review and scoring, and to answer any questions that you may have. So on this slide, yeah, I just went over the purpose, and then this slide also has the team member information. So this is the team that you'll be working with, and you might already recognize some of these names. So at the very top, you see Dr. Nicole Stedman is listed there. She's the panel manager for the program. Myself, it appears right after her, and that's my email and contact information. And then you have Katrina Hanks, who's a program specialist, and Kimberly Johnson, who's the program assistant. So Katrina and I really work together to provide management of the program. And then Kimberly, she supports the program with respect to your travel logistics, airfare, hotel, as well as your honorarium payments. So get to know Kimberly very well through this process. She's very important in making sure that you get paid, as well as making sure that you get here and are, and that your hotel is booked and everything. So the next thing is, this is probably one of the most important slides, is you need to give Kimberly a call and give her your bank and honorarium, or the information to get your honorarium. and you can give her a call on 720-2864. Apologize for the misprint. That should not say Aisha Williams. That should say Kimberly Johnson as well. So please call Kimberly Johnson if you need to still provide your travel information and as well as your honorarium information as well. Keep in mind that on the 10th of June, we did provide some information to you that included your welcome letter as well as the PRS letter. And so the PRS letter, it gives you that information that helps you log into PRS. And you're able to see all the proposals that have been assigned to you. When you get a chance, even though I know we're about 6 weeks away, go ahead and just look over the proposals to let us know if there are any conflicts of interest. We want to make sure that you're not, assigned a proposal that, whether it's a proposal that maybe it's from the same institution that you're at or, some other circumstance that might prevent you from giving an objective review of the proposal. And so conflict of interest is something that we take very seriously. And if there is a conflict of interest on any proposal that's been assigned, just let us know as soon as possible. We can reassign that to someone else, and we can do that pretty easily. So on this next slide, you're going to see a list of some of the most common conflicts of interest that we've seen. This is not an exhaustive list. This is probably some of the most common things that we see typically when we're dealing with panels. So for example, if you're from the same institution, or even if you had previous employment with that institution within the last year, or might even be, or currently being considered for employment at that school, let us know, because that would be a conflict of interest and we have to reassign that proposal to someone else. Similarly, things such as being a co-author on a publication within the last 3 years, or you have pending publications and submissions with anyone on the project team. So that would include the PD as well as the other key personnel. Then you would have a conflict of interest in that case. And then, and then there's some other ones, we even look at, if you're looking at the last one, even having a family relationship, or maybe another close personal relationship, friendships, things of that nature might also come to the level of a conflict, and we can reassign that proposal. So just let us know. And if there's something that you're not sure, but you have a question, that's always a good thing to check for. Just in case it's not on this slide, just give us a call. We can talk that over. As a precaution, we want to make sure that we have all reviews in prior to your travel. However, if you need, to get your reviews into PRS, even on the day of travel, you can do so by noon on the 26th of August. Just a reminder that the meeting dates are the 27th to the 30th, but again, with respect to your reviews, you have until noon on the 26th to get those in. On this slide, you'll see basically the agenda on the left side that will, plan to arrive at NIFA at around 8 a.m. One of the things that will make it easier is that the hotel is literally right across the street from NIFA. So you'll be at the hotel at the wharf. If you've been there before, I'm sure you're pretty familiar with that area. But you'll be able to get to NIFA very easily. It's just 5-minute walk, but you'll need time to get through security. And we'll start deliberating at 8:30 and probably conclude around 5 o'clock each day. We'll give you an hour for lunch at noon. Panel will conclude by the 30th, and any extra time that we have will be used to complete any panel summaries. And as far as the computer, you are welcome to bring your own if you want to use that during the panel. However, we will provide you with a computer during the panel meeting as well. So it's up to you. Just keep in mind that when you're going through security, you'll have to just remove that laptop or whatever device you have so that they can be checked through security. At this point, I'm going to just transition to kind of give you an overview of the program. It's not going to be an exhaustive one. The RFA is basically the best piece of information that provides information about CBG and its purpose and the objectives and goals. But go ahead and when you get a chance, review that on your own. When you get the slides, you'll be able to click on this hyperlink at the bottom, and it'll take you right to the page to access the RFA. The goal of the program is really three components. The first is CBG, which is only available to the 1890 land-grant schools. Its purpose to advance cultural diversity of the food and ag scientific and professional workforce. And it does that by attracting and educating more students from underrepresented groups. The secondly is the program is purposed to strengthen linkages among the schools, other colleges and universities, and USDA and other federal partners, and the private sector. And then thirdly, it's to enhance and strengthen the quality of teaching, research, and extension programs at the 1890 institutions so that they are more readily established to be full partners in the U.S. food and ag sciences higher education system. So those goals are also spelled out in the RFA. This is, again, probably one of the more important slides. It really speaks to the grant and project types across the program. You're going to be reviewing research proposals, so the middle row is going to be probably the most important and relevant to you. But additionally, you will also have integrated proposals in your pool. Integrated proposals, I'll explain what those are a little later. But you'll see that each project and grant type, there is an associated limit for each one. So for example, if you're looking at a research standard grant, that has a maximum fund allocation of $300,000. And then collaborative research projects would have a maximum limit of $500,000. All professional development projects, regardless of teaching, research, or extension, they're all capped at $100,000. And then all integrated projects are capped at $600,000. And all of this is explained in page 6 of the RFA. The grant types are as follows. You have standard, collaborative, and professional development. I'm going to quickly go through each one. So a standard grant simply is one in which the institution leads the project without any partners, and so there are no subawards attached. They are managing the grant on its own, and so the project will be executed. For example, Virginia State University would execute the project on its own, or North Carolina A&T would execute the project on its own. Each when it comes to standard projects, because of the fact that they're not sharing grant funds, you might notice, though, however, they might have some partnering entities. So they might be partnering with, maybe a USDA office, but they're not making a subaward to that office. So it might be like an ARS office that they're working with to execute the project, but there's no subawards. Collaboratives are completely different, that they are required to partner with at least one additional entity. So that could be a university, it could be a domestic university, it could be even an international entity as well. Collaborative grants should be building linkages. They should also be addressing a local, state, regional, or national issue. The other thing is that in the budgets, they should be demonstrating that no more than 50% of the funds are going to the other partnering institutions, okay? So when you're looking at subawards, no more than 1/2 of the awarded funds should be going to the other schools or entities to lead the grant. Professional development is very different altogether, and you'll see that explained on pages 16 and 17 of the RFA. They were introduced in 2014, and they're really built to provide faculty and staff opportunities for training. That could be done maybe via a sabbatical or maybe a faculty exchange, taking courses, maybe working with a private sector or a federal office. Maybe they're doing, maybe they're spending 3 months to 6 months at a U.S. state office. So, but they're really built to enhance faculty competencies in a specific area or areas, so that the 1890 institution and research capacity will be expanded. So any application for professional development should be able to demonstrate that. The grant types have been summarized for you. Now I'm going to transition to the project types. And there are really 4 of those: teaching and education, research, extension, and integrated. So the first one is kind of self-explanatory. Teaching and education projects are really purposed to build teaching and education capacity at the 1890s. There are 6 need areas associated with those. I'm not going to explain all of that because that's easily referenced in the RFA. However, some examples could be, recruitment and retention. Maybe it's, in 1890 wishes to work with area high schools to provide maybe summer programs for high school students who might be interested or curious about agriculture or food and ag sciences. So using summer programs as a way to recruit them into their programs, as an example. Research projects as well. And this would certainly be the focus for your panel. You'll be looking at research projects. There are 2 need areas explained on pages 11 and 12. So it funds, we fund basic, applied, multidisciplinary research, transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary research through this program across all food and ag sciences, natural resources, and human science areas. And then the other thing, extension projects, and you might see this, you might see some extension projects as a part of the integrated component, which I'll explain very shortly. But extension projects are explained on pages 12 and 13. These are used to build extension areas such as natural resources, entrepreneurship, small farms, 4-H and youth development, and other areas. And then the last project type is integrated. So I'm going to take about a minute to kind of explain what these are. So integrated projects are really it's projects that integrate at least 2 of the 3 components I just explained. So an integrated project could be a teaching and research, or maybe it's a research and extension, or it could be a teaching and extension, or maybe it's all 3. So the application is required to list the primary project type. So since this is a research panel, all of you will be reviewing integrated projects that listed research as the primary component. So for example, you might be looking at a project that is research and teaching, or research and extension, or maybe it's all 3, teaching, research, and extension. However, regardless of the mix of components, it should at least tell you what the primary project type is. The other thing to be aware of is the primary project type is defined as the area in which will receive most of the funding, up to 2/3 of the total budget could go towards the primary project type. And if you want to learn more about those, feel free to look at pages 13 and 14 in the RFA. So now I'm going to transition to this component of the presentation, which is going to talk about your job before the panel meeting, which is to review and score the proposals. The first thing you're going to want to do is read the RFA carefully. Secondly, pay special attention to the evaluation criteria. And then third is after you have an understanding of the RFA and the criteria, then you're ready to really read and review the proposals. So on this slide, this is listing the evaluation criteria for standard collaborative applications. You can find this on page 36 and through 38. And all of the criteria is explained in greater detail in the RFA. For professional development applications, the evaluation criteria is listed on page 38 through 39. And so you see those listed there for you. And the details, again, are in the RFA. One of the things I'm going to mention now, if you've looked at this program in the past, so we are in this is sort of a new era for the evaluation criteria. In the past, we used to have a 100-point scale. We, for the first time with this program, we did remove the scale from the RFA. So essentially what we have is we have an evaluation scale it's listed in order of priority from top to bottom. So it is going to basically affect the way you score the proposals. You're not going to score them out of 100 points like you did in the past if you've been a reviewer for this program in the past. And most of NIFA programs are now moving away from using a quantitative scale and now have moved towards using a qualitative scale. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but I just want to kind of give you a heads up. So now I'm going to talk about peer review system, PRS, which is the system that we use to score and evaluate grant applications for all of our competitive programs. That is the URL for PRS, and this is information that you should have already seen in your PRS letter that you received on the 10th of June. I'm sorry, the 10th of July. PRS, one of the things that I'd like to just say up front is when you're using it, it's probably best to use a Microsoft Word or something else to develop your reviews first, and then copy and paste from Word into PRS. That way you always have a backup of your reviews in case PRS, there's maybe there's a period in which it locks out, or you have some technical difficulties and it times out on you. Just want to make sure that you don't lose any of your work that you might have developed. So again, just use Word first and then copy and paste it into PRS. On this slide, you're going to see the main login screen. So this is the first thing that you see when you get ready to log in. Again, your PRS letter provided you your user ID, and if you're a prior user of PRS, then that password that you used previously, you would use that one again. And you can also reset your password if necessary. So go ahead and refer back to your PRS letter if you need to reset it, and that way you can access the system. When you're getting ready to use PRS, you're going to see a confidentiality guidelines. You're going to want to make sure that you review that information, and then you're going to want to accept to proceed further into the system. On this screen, you'll see a screen similar to this one, where you'll see a list of all the proposals that have been assigned to you one by one. And you'll also will have the option on the right-hand side of the screen to create and modify your review. You'll be able to read the reviews that have been submitted by others. And again, you can modify your review at any time. So anytime you save your work, you can always go back in and make changes to your reviews if you need to. This is also a good screen in case you wanted to quickly, for example, if you want to quickly go over any institutional conflicts of interest. This is probably the best screen because you'll see that it lists the institution by name of all the proposals, as well as if you have any conflicts with any of the PDs. This is also a good screen to use because the project director will be listed for each associated proposal that's been assigned. On this screen, you will see that this is what you'll see when you are creating and modifying your review. So again, I mentioned earlier, when you're getting ready to develop it, if you have it already developed outside of PRS, like in Microsoft Word, you're gonna want to paste your review inside that box. And then again, at the bottom, we are in a qualitative evaluation process. So you will not be typically at the bottom of the screen. You would have entered in your numeric score, but we've changed it now. So what you're really going to be doing is scoring the entire proposal as either excellent, very good, good, fair, or poor. And I will send out a 2-page, I think it's a 2 or 3-page document that kind of describes what an excellent proposal looks like versus what a very good proposal looks like, and so forth. So you'll have that information by later today. It's kind of a guide that kind of provides information as to how you use the scale. So you're really going to be, again, you're scoring the entire proposal as one of those 5 categories. But again, more information will be coming later. And once you are ready to score, you're going to want to either save for later or hit the continue button, and that will take you to another screen where you can complete the submission. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the panel deliberation process. I'm getting close to the end of my webinar. We will deliberate on the 27th through 30th. And the reason why we have panel, and this is a question that does come up, even though you've already done your individual reviews and you've scored the proposals, we need a panel deliberation because we want to enhance the review process by ensuring that we have a broader review, a more vigorous review of the proposals by a larger group of experts. And we do this by discussing each proposal one at a time. And typically we allow 7 minutes max per proposal, which is, in the grand scheme, it's not a lot of time, but see, we have a large pool of proposals this year. In your pool, I believe we have 118 proposals that we will be discussing over the 4 days. So that's a lot of proposals that we'll need to discuss. And the main thing is that we have to be fair to each proposal. So we can't spend, for example, 15 minutes on one proposal or 20 minutes because it wouldn't be fair to the other proposals in the pool. I have seen where there's a need perhaps to go over the 7-minute allotment, maybe 8, 9, sometimes even 10 minutes because there are some specific issues that comes up and we need additional time to discuss those issues. And that's fine. We'll do that on a case-by-case basis, but we're going to try to hold everyone to that 7-minute max when we're in panel. The way it works, so looking at the top of this slide and running clockwise, reviewer number 1 will begin the discussion and provide an overview as well as the strengths and weaknesses of the application. And then reviewers number 2 and 3 will provide additional comments. No need for them to repeat what was already said by reviewer number 1. They're just really adding some supporting or conflicting comments. And then the next box, the other panelists will have the opportunity to ask questions, join the discussion, make additional comments. And then after that, reviewers will have the opportunity to revise their scores based on the panel discussion. And then the final scores will be saved in PRS. So for example, even after maybe you scored the proposal initially as excellent, and maybe the discussion revealed some additional strengths and weaknesses that maybe you didn't see, and maybe you want to change that score of excellent to maybe very good. or maybe you want to go from very good to excellent. And so you'll have the opportunity to do that as a reviewer, even when you're here on site in the panel. So we're going to do this, this process for every proposal that we have. While you're here, you know, and this slide is really giving you your roles and responsibilities. Number one, you're going to want to participate and stay actively involved in the discussions throughout the entire process. The second thing is you want to make your comments concise and relevant to ensure that we have adequate time to discuss each proposal. And then the last thing is for panel summaries, which is another component. Reviewer number one, if you're the primary reviewer on an application, you are reviewer number one. You will have the primary responsibility for summarizing the panel discussion, and you will capture those comments into PRS as well. And I'll talk about the panel summary process shortly. You don't have to rehash the individual review. All you really need to do is summarize what was talked about during that 7 to 10 minutes. And then reviewers number 2 and 3 will have the opportunity to add any remarks to the panel summary in PRS. And then in PRS, the summary is sent electronically back to review number 1 for a final check, and it'll be saved from that point for delivery to the applicant once the panel has been completed. So, but again, don't worry about panel summaries. That is a component that you will really need to focus on when you're here in Washington, D.C. You don't have to worry about that for now. The only thing you really need to worry about is your individual reviews. So the panel summary is only a part of the process in August. This is what the panel summary screen looks like. It's a little different than what a sample review would look like. But it's really just capturing the positive aspects and the negative aspects of each proposal. And then the synthesis comments is really just sort of your bottom line conclusion of the proposal. You don't need to make a funding recommendation in the synthesis comment. You just need to sort of speak to sort of the overall qualitative assessment in terms of what the panel thought overall about the proposal. So this is my second to last slide. This is really talking about confidentiality. Probably second to conflict of interest, confidentiality is one of the most important pieces of this entire process. We want to make sure that proposal content and the identity of the applicant is confidential. Reviewer and panelist identity. Reviews should only be shared with program staff only. And also the panel proceedings should always be confidential. Even when you're here in panel, when you go back to the hotel, please don't discuss any proposals outside of the panel room. So even at the hotel, you should not be having discussions informally about any proposals, because that can influence the discussion in the room. Okay, so we want to make sure all discussions of the proposals are inside the panel room. Now I'm going to talk about the information in these green boxes. So do not copy, quote, or otherwise use material from this application. So that applies to all proposals that you receive. You cannot, again, copy or quote any of that information or use any of that information in the future. At the end of the panel, you are going to want to destroy all printed and electronic material related to the application and maintain its confidentiality. So if you decide to print proposals from PRS, and you can, you should shred those after the panel is over. If you're just going to want to maintain electronic copies of the proposals on your computer, you need to delete those from your machine once the panel is over. And now the last box, if your circumstances change and you cannot serve on the panel for a certain reason, just let us know as soon as possible. Destroy all printed and electronic materials related to the applications. And then I'll ask you, please maintain confidentiality for anything you might have already read. We do know that things come up that maybe at the last moment you can't serve, but at the same time, just please, in support of the program, maintain confidentiality of any information that you might have already read in the application or absorbed from this process. Last slide, again, just relax, enjoy the process. If you're new to being a reviewer for this program, or if you're just new to being a reviewer for NIFA competitive grant programs, we do think that this process will be very helpful to you in terms of helping you perhaps apply to future NIFA funding opportunities in the future. But again, just let us know if there are any concerns, if you're needing any clarification on anything that I might have mentioned in this session, or if the RFA, if something doesn't make sense to you, just let me know, and I can certainly provide a clarification. Again, I'm going to repeat the team information for you. All the email and phone numbers are listed there for you for the team members. If you need any of us at any time, let us know. Give us a call, send us an email. The other thing that I will also quickly mention is please refer back to that July 10th email. That email included your information to get into PRS. It also provided some other logistical information. So just, feel free to review that on your own. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and stop and take any questions that you may have. If you have questions, please do me a favor. Just type it in the chat box. I will go through each question one by one. And if you have a question that you don't want to ask, then feel free to give me a call or send me an email, and I'll assist you that way. So at this time, are there any questions? Okay, so I see a comment that the hotel staff didn't have a reservation blocked for that time period. So what you have to do is you need to give Kimberly Johnson a call, and she will work that out in terms of your hotel reservations. So give her a call, send her an email, and work with her to get your hotel room reserved. There is a block already there at the hotel for the panel, but your specific reservation has not been made yet. So you just need to give her work with her to get that done. I see a comment about the scoring procedure. Yes, I will send out a document that talks about the qualitative evaluation process so that you have that in advance. Yes, so this session is being recorded right now. Once it's been converted, it's going to be converted to a YouTube clip. And once it's available, I'll send that out so that you can watch the recording later. I'm also going to send out the slides. So you will have these slides available to you. I'm going to also send out a tutorial of PRS and 2 sample reviews so you can see what a good evaluation looks like in terms of your individual review. So you'll have that up front. Yes, so thank you, Steve. So in the past, typically, when it came down to the scoring of the application was done where you would be scoring each criterion individually. So, for example, the first criterion might have been worth 50 points out of the total 100 points, and you would be scoring each one individually. But this time, you're going to be scoring the entire proposal qualitatively. So you're going to have your comments, and then based on your comments, And based on the evaluation criteria in the RFA in terms of the applicant's ability to include all the necessary information, you're going to qualitatively evaluate that proposal as being excellent, very good, good, fair, or poor. And again, when I send out that two-pager, you'll have that information to help you qualitatively evaluate that proposal. Yeah, good question. I just got a question about if you served previously, do we still need the flight arrangement and bank routing number? Yes, because we want to make sure that nothing has changed. So you still want to get with Kimberly, provide that information. Sometimes information changes. We want to make sure that we have the most current information. Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, a question about when will we be done? Good question. You know, we try, you know, to, on the last day, typically we are, you know, we're doing the re-ranking of the proposals, and I'll talk about re-ranking when you come to DC, as well as completing the panel summary. So typically when we set up the flights, they are late afternoon flights. And we do that because we want to make sure that we allow time to get through everything. If we do finish early and you're able to change your flight, you're able to do so, as long as it's there's not I guess a huge change fee associated with that. You can work with Kimberly on the last day if for any reason, and we'll know where things are on Thursday, how things are looking in terms of when we expect to be done. But again, just kind of giving you a heads up, the return flight is typically a late afternoon, sometimes an evening flight. If you're coming from the West Coast, I mean, we'll certainly work with you. We've done things like, even for those who are flexible, if you have to stay an additional night because maybe you're coming from the West Coast and you're not able to get a flight out late in the afternoon or in the evening to go back, then for those who are flexible, who can stay an additional night and come back on Saturday, that we can also look at that. But we'll do the best we can to accommodate everybody when it comes to the return flight. So in terms of, just want to also give you this piece of information. Changing flights, it has to be equal or less than the original airfare quote that you had received. So so we are able to do it just as long as it's equal or less than the airfare amount that you already had. Okay, a question in terms of the PI's collaborator. Yeah, so you're, in terms of conflict of interest, you're only going to be looking at your conflicts of interest. You're not going to look at the conflicts of interest that the PI might have. In other words, if you have worked with any of the project team, so it could be the PI or the co-PI or anyone else that's a member of that team, if you have a conflict of interest with them, and if you've been a collaborator with any of them, then you would have a potential conflict of interest. However, if someone is listed on the PI's conflict of interest form, that you may know, that wouldn't necessarily be a conflict of interest, because again, that's just sort of a coincidence. You're really looking at the actual team that's leading the project. So the PD, co-PD, and whoever else that they might have listed as a member of the senior or key personnel, you would be looking at those individuals in terms of COI. Okay, I have a question. If anyone already has funding from NIFA on last year's proposal, can he or she still be eligible for submitting new proposals on a different area this year? The answer is yes. Faculty can be a lead PD on no more than 2 CBG grants. If they are looking to submit for additional funding beyond that, then one of the 2 projects has to be expiring this year. Okay, so if someone already has, and you'll see that on the current and pending form, if they already have current support for 2 active CBG grants, one of those CBG grants must be expiring this year in order to acquire or to have the capacity to acquire new funding. If they only have 1 project, then they're in the clear. Then that's fine, because again, the max is 2. 2 active CBG projects is the max. And just want to go back to COI for a minute. I just want to make sure I didn't confuse folks. So if the PI's collaborator, if the collaborator is listed as someone, as a senior member of the team, then perhaps that could be COI. If it's not clear in the application, let me know, and I can work with you to see if there is a COI on that. It just depends on how they define that person. If it's a senior or key member, sometimes we have situations in which it's a consultant or someone external. But it just depends on how they define collaborator. So just let me know. And if you're, the safe side is if you are if you feel somewhat conflicted, then the safe side is let's just reassign it, because sometimes some of the COIs that we've seen it's gray. Sometimes it's not always black and white. So just to be on the safe side, if you think you have a conflict of interest with that collaborator, we can reassign it right now. We don't have to even go any further in trying to sort of mitigate that, because again, we want to make sure that you are completely objective, and that if this proposal was recommended for funding, that you wouldn't be indirectly benefiting from that funding being provided to that institution. So just let me know how you feel. But again, sometimes some of the COIs, it's hard to really determine it. But always be on the safe side, err on the side of caution. And again, we can talk that through if you need some assistance. Any additional questions? Okay, so there's a question: can a PI in one proposal serve as a collaborator with anyone else as a co-PI on someone else's proposal? The answer is yes. So there are no limit on the number of times you are a co-PD on a CBG project. We only have the limit on PDs. So you can be, someone could be a co-PD on 3 or 4 or 5 grants, as long as they're not exceeding their percentage of effort. So in current and pending, you can't exceed 100%. So as long as all the support is listed there, and it should be, then they're fine. So they might be on multiple awards as a co-PD, but they are only limited as a PD on 2 awards. and a person can be a PD and be a co-PD in the same cycle. That's fine. Okay, anything else? Okay, I just want to go, the other thing I want to emphasize is Kimberly Johnson. Please reach out to Kimberly as soon as you can. I think in one of the earlier slides, the phone number might have been incorrect. Kimberly's phone number is 720-3311. Her email is listed there for you. Reach out to her as soon as possible to get your travel and your honorarium logistics squared away. The other thing is, again, go into PRS if you haven't already done so. Let us know if you have any conflicts of interest. We want to make sure that we're providing the best possible review of all the applications. The other thing is, we don't want to get into a situation where we're making reassignments late as it gets later into the process. So we want to make sure that all of you have adequate time to do your review. So I know that things come up. Try not, but if you can avoid not letting us know about conflicts of interest at the last minute, that would be very, very helpful for us. But again, just please review, just go, look at the key personnel, look at the institutions that have been submitting proposals, look at, the information that is included in the application for any persons that might be involved. And let us know if you have a COI and we can get that squared away for you. Be on the lookout for an email from me later today. I will provide additional information and resources for you. And again, you have from now until August 26th at noon to complete the evaluation of all your proposals. If for any reason something comes up and you can't serve, let us know as soon as possible so we can try to find a replacement panelist. And other than that, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention to this process. We really appreciate all the work that you're getting ready to do. It's certainly a lot for you to, review 14, 15 proposals, as well as, come to DC and spend 4 days with us. So we really appreciate that in advance. Again, if you have any questions, anything that is very specific to your situation that you didn't want to ask, give me a call, send me an email after this webinar, and we can certainly discuss that at that time. I'm not seeing any additional questions. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to end the session for now. And again, take care. Let us know if we can help. And we look forward to seeing you in Washington, D.C. next month. Thanks again.